I've said time and time again on this podcast that feelings are messages, and we need to figure out what the message is saying, what it's telling us. And to do that, we speak to God. We ask God, we talk to God, we pray and hear God's voice. And you might be wondering, how do you do that? Like even that last episode with my feeling of loneliness and how I talked to God all day and heard what to do about it and how to handle it. And I actually had so much peace. So you might be just, well, how do I get that? How do I get there? I try to hear God's voice and I can't and I don't. And I've heard this from you personally, some feedback. And so I am so excited to bring you this guest today. Heather is a prophetic healing coach, minister, author, speaker. She helps Christians heal with God from trauma, anxiety, and depression by hearing God's voice. She is the host of a top 5% globally ranked podcast, Heal with God, and she believes with God's help, you can forgive the unforgivable and heal from trauma. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation today, and I want to invite you into a praying community as we work on praying more and knowing God more and hearing God's voice. I want to do it together, and I invite you into our community, bit.ly/courageous village. This is simple wellness solutions for motherhood stress. And I would love to have you in there as we are gathering together to lift each other up in prayer and really encounter the voice of God on a real level so that we have peace in the midst of all of our motherhood stress, because there will be stress, but there is peace over it all. Without further ado, here's the conversation with Heather O'Brien. Hey mama, are you stressed by the lack of time in the day to do all the things? Are you feeling disconnected from God, your husband, and even your kids because patience and presence seem out of reach? Do you want a healthier body, mind, spirit, and home, but overwhelmed in where to start? Hey, I'm Shan, daughter of the king, wife, mom to 4, RN, wellness coach, and I know very well what it feels like to want to live well, but about to lose it with my very blessed full life. After realizing I can't pour from an empty cup, I tracked my way to whole body wellness and so much peace. If you are ready to cancel the stressed out life, learn tactical, intentional strategies as a mom wearing many hats, find more peace, confidence, and joy raising kingdom kids, then listen in. Come on, mama, together we got this. Really, God's got this. So go heat up that coffee again and turn your listening ears on. Let's chat. So I have Heather O'Brien here with me. Heather, welcome to the show.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me today here, Shan.
Yes. Okay. I would love the listeners to get to know you a bit. I've just got to know you a little bit. It's been so fun. So please share briefly about your family. Just, do you have kids, husband? Are you single, whatever? And then 3 things that you're loving right now.
Yeah, so I am married. We just got our 22nd anniversary. We have 3 kids. They're all boys, and one is 17, 14, and 7. So there's a nice
Wow.
big span there. 7-year gap between the last and the middle, and then a 10-year gap between the oldest and littlest. And yes, they
Yeah.
were all planned. No accidents. That's just a whole nother story to that. But what else? 3 things I'm in love with.
Yeah.
Let's see. One of my favorite new things I just got is a desk that I can actually raise and make it where I can stand and work. And okay, so that was one thing. I got a little walking pad that goes under that standing desk. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, I got so much steps in today. Like this is new. I've been wanting to do it for so long. I was like saving up. Like, why did I wait so long? So
I
I'm
want
in
that
love with it. And
so
I love
bad.
the walking pad is like really helping like get a lot of steps in.
I want
And
it
I'm
so
able
bad.
to actually think. I wasn't sure if I could like think while and type while I'm walking, but actually I'm like, oh, I'm going too slow. I need to go faster.
Oh,
It's interesting.
cool. I want
The
that.
third thing. Okay, that's 2 things. My third thing that I'm loving. Okay, so I am a plant mom. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but I like watching plants grow and multiply. And I have a lot in my house, like a lot. And I got these new little shelves to put them on that helps them like get arranged in different heights. And it was just really cool to put together. It was so easy to put together because I'm not necessarily your girl with tools. So I really loved it. It actually came with like this little mallet that you could use to put all the pieces together instead of screwdrivers. So that was fun.
Is that from IKEA?
No, it was from Amazon.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
feel like a little mallet thing would be like an IKEA thing too, but
Right. I'd never got anything with a mallet before, so it was kind of fun.
that is fun. Oh, I bet you it's so pretty. Awesome. Okay, so I have been dreaming about the walking pad desk, but I have this like old wooden desk that I'd have to get rid of completely, and I don't want to do that.
Mm.
But the walking pad is just so enticing.
I
I
did have to rearrange my entire house to make it work.
I know my husband might not like that.
Well, okay, so that's what my husband said. That's fine that you got that, but what are you going to get rid of? So
Yeah.
I totally get that. And so I did. I rearranged it's in my bedroom. But the walking pad stands up. And so I just put it up against the wall. The desk is super skinny. It's skinnier than the other desk I had in here. So it's actually, and I can roll it around. It's on little rollers. So I can roll around to record podcasts and sit in this nice chair, or I can go roll it up and put it
Huh.
over on the pad. Anyways.
Oh, I might be able to make this work. You're giving me some ideas. Okay. All right. Well, I love to start all conversations with hearing a little bit of where God has brought you from, why you're doing what you're doing today, what are you doing today, and just your testimony. So please share with us.
All right now. So I have a bachelor's degree in business administration. I was an accountant for more than a decade. And then my healing journey began. And through my healing journey, I was like at the beginning, my testimony is that I was full of depression. I was on depression meds and full of fear, like real fear. But now that I learned later, like I was scared of, noises. I was double checking locks. I would keep the TV and lights on at night so that I could sleep, that kind of fear. But also later, I'm realizing I had fear of rejection. I had fear of
Hmm.
abandonment. I had all of those kind of internal belief fears too, the
Hmm.
fear of man going on inside of all of this. And I was diagnosed because I kept going to the doctor because I was trying to figure out why I would wake up from a deep sleep just to vomit. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was brand new married and that was happening. I was like, I know I'm not pregnant. I wasn't trying to get pregnant. I was preventing it. I knew I wasn't. And I went to several doctors and the last one, they want to do all the tests on you just to be sure. And I totally get that. But the last doctor kind of looked at me and she was like, do I have permission to tell you what I really think? And I'm like, yeah, that would be great. Because you really just want a diagnosis. At some point, you just want to know what is this thing? What's causing this? And they did all the tests, and she's like, I think you're just depressed. And as she said that, I thought, huh, that word does sound right. But
Mm.
it had never crossed my mind before that moment, which I don't know. I guess I was just in this cloud of sadness and I didn't understand that you could get out of it. I don't know. I don't even know. I was just deceived maybe
Hmm.
to not even be able to see it until she said it. And when she said it, I'm like, huh, I can put those pieces together. Yeah. And so I took depression medicine for 6, 7 years. I don't know. I was numb. So I know it can help a lot of people. I'm not against depression medicines at all, but I got to this point where I started 6, 7 years in. I was like, huh, I wonder why I'm depressed and why I'm taking this medicine.
Yeah.
That's how deceived I was that the devil led me down that rabbit hole of like, okay, well, she knows she's depressed now, so I'll just let her be a mummy, basically. Like I was a zombie, not happy, not sad, and definitely not Heather. And then I came to this moment of, I know it was a God moment of like, let's find out why I am sad. And when I started digging into that, that's when my Jesus story starts. I started really, I didn't know I was a Christian. And so I was a Christian from a young age, and I didn't know that I could hear God's voice. Maybe that sounds weird. I grew up in the Pentecostals and I still didn't know. And maybe it's because I was in a haze of depression all this time. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was like 30 when I realized I could personally hear God for myself. And that started bringing me out. I started asking God questions like, why is this? Why is that? And journaling is one of the first ways that I learned how to hear God's voice. Yeah. And so once I got healed, I also got delivered. I started hearing God's voice. And I don't know about you, but like once you hear God's voice, the creator of the universe, it's like, there's like no going back from that.
Hmm.
It just like there's a dopamine hit like that's like no other. Like, have you ever heard the phrase, there's no high like the most high? It's like, and I don't even
True.
know what it's like to be on drugs, but I know what it's like to hear God's voice, and it is like, whoa, it's intense. And so I just had this like desire in me to make sure everyone around me knew, hey, did you know God speaks?
Yeah.
Did you know? Like, and that's what was on my mind, but also like, did you know he heals? Did you like I was getting free, but wanting to free everybody else at the same time. And
Hmm.
God's like, hold your horses. Let's just get you free first. So yeah, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. And, then I started discipling people and slowly but surely walking people through the same thing I would walk through. I was like one step ahead of them. And then here I come. And now I've been coaching people and walking through inner healing and deliverance with others for the last decade at least. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Well, I have been wanting to have you on the podcast for quite some time because ever since I started my show, I have been getting questions from listeners. How do you hear God's voice? Because I will say that naturally on, like my first 10 or so episodes, like naturally say it. I heard God say this and I heard God say that. And then I was telling them things to do and like action steps to take. And they're like, hold on, how did you hear God's voice? And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I had to have a few episodes on how to hear God's voice, but I I think it's still a thing that unless we do it, like you said, unless we experience it, we are so unsure that it's really God. So can you help us say it in a new way? Because I've said it some ways and maybe they need to hear it your way, Heather's way. How do we differentiate between our thoughts and God's thoughts? And what are some practical ways that you do it on the everyday?
Yeah. Okay. I like easy things. I don't think anything with God is hard. And we
Right.
try to make it hard, right?
I
Because the
agree.
perfectionism comes in and the performance and like really it's pride that rises up and tries to
Mhm.
muster up this, I've got to figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to make this really easy. There's two ways you can know whether you're hearing God. Number one brings us back to Galatians 5. It talks about the fruit of the Spirit. And it doesn't say fruits, it says fruit. So the fruit of being with God comes with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, all those things. That's one way that you know you're hearing God. A lot of times when I ask God a question and he talks to me, it's so nice, so kind, so
Yeah.
loving. I know that that wasn't me because I'm not that kind to myself.
Oh, yes, yes. I
I-
we just recorded on her show and I did not say that, but being a recovering perfectionist, there's that inner critic
yeah,
and most things that come in my head from my own thoughts are negative. They're like, you didn't do this good enough. You're not gonna it's all bad. And it's like
yeah,
when you know it's good, then you know it's not from you.
that's it. That's it. Okay, so that's one way. And so it's got to have the fruit of the spirit in it.
Hmm.
Love, joy, peace, patience. And if it doesn't have that, if it feels like perfectionism, performance, and things like that, that's not a fruit of the spirit. That's not in the Bible. So we X that out. And the other thing is God's um the Bible, right? That his character,
Yeah.
everything that's in the characteristics of God. And so that comes by knowing the truth will set you free, by reading the
Yeah.
word, by getting to know the word. It's not gonna go against the scripture. So in other
Right.
words, okay, you could sum this up really easily if you know the 10 commandments, which this is a really fun thing to learn with your kids. There's some YouTube videos that can teach you all 10 with a song in 3 minutes. I even practiced this with my kids. I was like, okay, they said that we can memorize these 10 in these 3 minutes. Do you want to try it? And we all tried it and we did it. It was that memorable of a little cartoon. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's at Living Waters, by the way. I love that publication. Okay, so if you go down to the 10 Commandments, you know what God has already said. He
Mhm.
says, don't commit adultery. He says, don't murder. And he even, Jesus ups the ante with murder, right? Like he's like, if you have hate in your heart, it's the same as murder. So we know, like if we hear God say, if we think we heard God say, go kill your brother, he didn't do that,
Mhm.
right? Because he already said, don't murder.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what in the New Testament, in the New Covenant era, we know that it's not going to go against the 10 Commandments and we know it's going to have the fruit of the Spirit in it.
Yeah.
So that's two easy ways to know that you heard God. It's probably going to be really kind, really nice, and it's not going to go against his word. Okay. So
Yeah.
you said some practical ways to actually apply this during your life.
Sure. Mhm.
I love to just ask him questions throughout the day. And okay, so I know your audience is for busy moms,
Mhm.
and maybe you don't have time to sit in your prayer closet. I get that. Maybe you do, but it's only for 5 minutes, and listening prayers is not going to happen. You're just going to talk to God and you're not necessarily going to listen, but you can listen throughout the day. So
Mhm.
one way to do this, I do some fun things with practicing to hear God's voice. I feel like that's what you're asking me. Just
Mhm. Sure.
practical
Yeah.
practice. Okay. So you know how you get like a notification that you just got a text message on your phone?
Mhm.
You get a little ding. So when I get that little ding, sometimes I'll say, God, who is that from? And that's a moment right there. You practice hearing God, and you're gonna get like you're gonna get immediate response as to whether you got it right or wrong, right? Like you're gonna look at your phone. So now sometimes I take it a step further. So I'll feel like, okay, that was from my mom. Okay. And then I'll say, well, what does she say? And I often even hear her response from God, and I look and I check. And I love validation, right? Because
Yeah.
in these everyday things that don't matter, we get
Mhm.
this validation that, okay, I can hear God. And okay, so I heard it was for my mom, and I asked God, I'm like, what did she say? And I feel like she just said, okay, with the explanation point. And I look down, and when you know, that's exactly who it was from and what she said.
Yeah.
You're gonna freak out when this happens. Like you're gonna freak out when you know, and it's not you're okay, you're not psychic. You have a connection to God. You just
Yeah.
asked God a question and God just spoke to you. The one who created this whole flippin' universe just spoke to you
Yeah.
about something that was everyday and mundane. We need the everyday mundane, right?
Mhm.
That's
I
one
love
part.
that. So, and I have heard before, like definitely asking God for clarification and confirmation. So like you can be praying about something like you said in the beginning of the day, maybe you have 5 minutes, but then throughout the whole day, being like, God, I need you to confirm this. And he's going to
Yes.
confirm it through people and text
Yes.
and nature and the wind, like however he wants to do it. So that is so amazing. I had this one. I want to share real quick this one story of when I heard God clearly, and it was weird because like there's sometimes like you hear him and you're like, okay, was that really God? Like that's
Uh-huh.
just the weirdest thing. And we had just gotten the transmission on our car fixed, and my it was a week later, and my husband left the house, came back 2 minutes later, and he's like, I can't go above 30. The transmission is not working. We just
Oh,
got this transmission fixed. It was a brand new transmission. He's like, it's not going above 30. It's broken. So he left the house again, took the other car. And I was vacuuming, and I heard God say, it's sick. And I was like, well, I'm not sick. And he's like, no, pray for the transmission. It's sick. Lay hands, like cast out the spirit of infirmity. And I was like, what? That's weird. So I literally went to the garage, laid hands on the transmission, bound the spirit of infirmity.
I love this so much.
And then I drove the car around the neighborhood. And I didn't want to leave the neighborhood in case it didn't go above 30. And you're not supposed to go above 30 in the neighborhood, but I
Right.
did. There's a straightaway. It was dark. No one, late at night, no one's driving in the neighborhood. And I zoomed it down the neighborhood and straight away. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus. Like, for one, I heard you. For
Yeah.
two, you just healed my car.
Come on.
So yeah,
I
that's
love this so much.
that's my story.
I love how you feel like it was weird, but you still did it.
I know because it's like, well, if I did hear him,
Uh-huh.
even in this weird thing, then that's going to take me further. It's going to give me more confidence
Yeah,
the next time I
that's
hear
it.
something weird, it's going to lead
Exactly.
me into another miracle.
Exactly. And okay, so there's obedience in it, and even trying it is there's this belief and faith in it in going in around the neighborhood and driving it around, right? So our faith kind of activates that thing, right?
Well, and
He's
then
like,
of course, when my husband comes home and I'm like, I think the car's fixed. And he's like, what? I was like, don't laugh at me, but I laid
oh boy.
hands on it and I prayed for it and it's better. And he's like, okay, I believe you. But like having to tell him was just like a whole nother thing of like, this is what really happened, God. I think this was not a dream.
That's funny. Yeah. And sharing that testimony with others is
Mhm.
like, can I be weird around everybody? Maybe not, but it almost like strips us of that fear of man that
Oh,
we
yeah.
need to be stripped of, right? To testify about what Jesus did, it just takes us in another level of
Yeah.
connection to him, right?
Yes. Okay. I love that practical example so much. And I encourage you listeners, ask God these questions. But like it could be a ding on the phone, it could be a knock on the door, and you're like, God, tell me who's at the door.
Yeah.
Before you go look at it, it could be a variety of things. Have fun with
Yeah.
it because God, oh my gosh, God is so fun.
Right.
He's so
Okay, so
fun.
that's it. That is it. I literally play games with God.
Yeah, I love
Okay, not like I'm testing him, but like
no.
games because I love to play games and my husband hates playing games. And so like I'm married for 22 years to someone who hates playing games. And I'm like, come on. I finally have kids now that are old enough to play with me too, but I do that like, okay, so I'll get ready for a meeting at church. I guess we're still telling examples. I hope this is okay.
Yes.
Well, like I have to set out chairs in a circle. And I'm like, okay, God, how many chairs should I set out? And that's like a game to me. I'm not testing God. No one knows I'm doing it. It's just between me and God. Like we're
Yeah.
hanging out. Like, and I set 8 out and 7 people show up. And then I'm like, in my mind, nobody else knows, but in my mind, I'm like, come on, God, you said 8. I know I heard you. And then when someone else comes in. Or one time, someone was pregnant.
Oh, and you're like, there's still ladies.
Oh my, come on, God. Okay, yeah, so that's fun. Like
It is
you
fun.
can really learn to hear God's voice for the things that matter with the things that don't matter, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So tell us, how do our emotions, we talk a lot about emotional wellness, mental wellness, how feelings are messengers. How do they impact our ability to hear God's voice?
Hmm. Well, they do, obviously, because they're so loud, right?
Yeah. They're
Our
messengers that are
emotions,
loud and disruptive.
yes, they're so loud and makes me think about those movies. What's it called?
Inside
Inside
Out.
Out. Yeah,
Inside
yeah.
Out 1 and 2. It's so
Yeah.
relatable.
And I feel like God is in there, and like in all of that, you can find relatable spiritual application, right? Our
Oh yeah, we
emotions are
just had those movies in our church, like at the movie series, and like the pastor interrupts the movie and shares the biblical practical lessons.
whoa,
And
how
we just did Inside Out
fun.
too on Sunday. It's so good.
How fun. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
How fun. Well, yeah, okay, so our emotions are really loud, and God is not. Not generally. He generally is not loud. Like
Right.
I'm thinking back, was it Elijah in the cave and he was looking for God and God wasn't in the wind. He wasn't in the earthquake. He wasn't in all of those
The
big, big,
thunder.
loud things. He was in the gentle whisper.
Hmm.
And so dealing with our emotions is really important because God gave us emotions. However, this is really important that you know that God gave you fear, but he didn't give you the spirit of fear. And differentiating the two takes, some maturity and practice, right?
Hmm.
So he gave you fear in the sense that he wants you to like stay safe, right? So if you're
Hmm.
on a train track and a train is coming, their fear says move out of the way. But the spirit of fear, like in my life, was telling me double check the door locks. Like
Mhm.
leave the TV on for noise so that you don't hear any noise and then you'll wake up all scared, right? That's a spirit of fear, and that's completely different than the emotion. So practically, like the emotions have to be heard, seen, known, realized, notated. And, I'm kind of okay with the whole emotional wheel thing, that therapists will use. I love the ones that add the biblical stuff to it, right? Like some of them will have, when you're feeling these emotions, here's a scripture that goes with it. I love that. But no, okay, so kind of like you, like, let's get to the bottom of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have this emotion. I'm angry, for instance. And what does that mean? God, what are you
Mhm.
saying? Why am I angry? And talking to God through those emotions can help us get to the bottom of why we feel the way we feel, rather than letting our emotions lead us. When we're asking God questions, then we're letting the Holy Spirit lead us.
Mhm.
It's a process. I'm not going to condemn anybody. Like emotions are loud and
Mhm.
boisterous. So we have to learn it through a process of building our muscles, right? So it's just like
Yeah.
going to the gym. It's a muscle that you grow of like, wow, I feel really angry. I haven't said anything yet. I haven't actually sinned, but in my heart, I know like if I say a word right now, I'm probably not going to be very nice.
Mhm.
And taking that to the moment of, yes, I'm not talking, I'm not hurting anyone's feelings, but also going backwards and not, okay, God, I feel
Mhm.
like, what do I do with this? Why am I angry? Why am I
Mhm.
so angry? And a lot of times it's something that rubbed off in the spirit realm or um, you know, just something that happened during the day. Like we got a message on our phone, we got an email, we
Mhm.
got a some kind of notification in our world, a relationship or something that making us feel off balance. And we've got to deal with it and process it. I hope that was an answer to your question.
Yeah. How about when, you're going about your day and you're a busy mom and you are stressed out and you're angry and you're taking out on your kids and you're saying things to your kids and you're hearing the loud feeling of anger. What do you do in that? Can you do something in that moment to hear God's voice? That's a soft whisper. Can you do something amongst the busy? Like, how do you keep going and not wait till the very end
Yeah,
of the day after you already said all these things that came out of anger? Like, how do you stop it?
that's good. Okay, so that's totally relatable. And um I don't know, maybe there's a perfect mom out there who's never like had that moment, but
Not me.
I've got three kids who don't always obey. In fact, rarely do, at least the first time. So that's actually part of my testimony is I got
Yeah,
free of a spirit of control. And I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about devils on this episode, but
you can. You can.
there are devils influencing our emotions.
Mm.
And this is okay, this is practical application. I would get really angry, just like you described, and my voice would be elevated.
Mhm.
And the Lord was showing me, okay, that spirit's present. You're
Mhm.
not in control. They're not doing what you said. I remember specifically like this Nerf war going on in my house. You know what I'm talking about? Like my kids have every Nerf gun.
Yeah.
All the bullets are just flying and they're not obeying. I'm like trying to vacuum or something, and here comes more bullets. And I'm like, come on, guys. And they would not obey. And my blood starts boiling. You know that feeling like you're not in control, number one. And so here's what I'm learning from now is realizing, okay, God, I realize I'm not in control. I've never actually been in control. It's a facade to think I was. And so I have this thought process that goes through my mind of I talk to myself more than I'm talking to
Mhm.
God. I'm actually talking to my soul and helping my soul get things back in order. So I tell myself, Heather, you're not in control. You never were in control. It's a facade to think you were in control. You can't control them no matter what you say, no matter how your voice is raised, Heather. That's because you don't feel heard, you don't feel listened, you don't feel validated, but also that devil's around. And then I start getting excited. I don't, I'm not excited that a devil's around, but I'm excited that I realized it's not me.
Mhm.
It's a spiritual war.
Yeah.
And the spirit is around and it's wanting me to partner with it and be mad at other humans in my space. And I start getting excited when I realize it's the devil and I'm not mad at my kids anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. I think it's that the more you realize in the quiet moments when you do have quiet time with God, that will play out in the busy moments. Like it will
Yes.
translate. So if you have that real relationship with God where you are praying sometimes and you are reading your word and you are communing with him and you are having that conversation with him throughout the day, then when these days come and these moments come when you're so stressed out and angry, you can recognize there's something present here that's not of God, and I can do something about it because it's a spiritual war. And I
Yeah.
can say, I bind that spirit of
Yeah.
control right now in Jesus' name, command it to go,
Yes.
and I lose peace. And there's sometimes when
Yes.
I do that, oh, we have one child that struggles with anxiety. And so we would get, it would work up me and it would get
Yes.
me pretty anxious. And we would be pressed for time because she had to catch the school bus. So it would be times when I would say, get mad at it. Like it's not welcomed here.
Yeah.
And I would say, out of, a voice a little raised, be like, I bind that spirit of anxiety. And I would tell her to say it too, because you have to realize that it's affecting you. And
Yep.
as a child, I mean, it's sometimes hard, but I'm like, this is not you.
Yep.
This is not how God
Yep.
made you.
Yep.
So you call it out too.
Yep.
Don't just make mommy do it. You do it too. And let's tell it to go.
Even as you're saying that, I've heard these teachings that really were life-changing. And it's this one phrase, hurry is demonic.
Mm,
Anytime you're in a hurry, you're also going to feel like panicky and
yeah.
that high level of anxiety. And if you can remember this phrase, hurry is demonic, you're going to remember what we're also telling you to do. Oh, there's a spirit here. And
Yeah.
if you keep saying the word hurry up, let's go, hurry up, you are making an agreement that it's okay to be in a hurry. And so you want to break that agreement and you want to say, I am not in a hurry. I am right on time. Those beliefs, those things that you want to happen, you start partnering with and saying
Yes.
out loud. And saying it out loud is really important because there's also angels present. Let's get real.
Yeah.
There's also angels there ready to fight those spiritual battles. And
Yeah.
when we're speaking out loud and loosing God's word, they can act on our behalf. And we're not
Yeah.
fighting devils. No, the angels are in the spiritual battle.
Yeah.
It's the fight's not ours, but it is ours whenever we don't speak it out, whenever we're partnering with fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're accepting it and saying, come on, just keep having your way with me. And yeah, I love that. And yeah, I'm sure we could keep going with lots of examples and share back and forth because that is very real. It is real. Like the spiritual realm is real, and I want people to recognize that. And when you have that intimate connection with God again, and you hear His voice, and you do, and you have that communion with Him, then you are more in touch with the spiritual realm, and you know that you get closer to it, and it gets thinner, and then you can see when things act up that are not of God, you can put your finger on it faster and you can speak against it faster. I talk a lot about on this podcast about speaking out
Yeah.
loud. So I'm glad you said that and
Yeah.
reiterated that because that's what I say too. I say you have to speak your beliefs out loud,
Yeah.
you got to tell your brain what to think because it's all wrapped
Exactly.
up in these lies. Tell it what to
That's
think.
it. In the darkness of our thinking, everything seems reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
We say it
It's
out loud,
true.
it kind of untangles the truth.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the hurry is demonic. I'm going to be using that. You better believe it. Because actually, this morning, I didn't use those words because I didn't know that. But I had a child who was hurrying and she had a reaction. And I said, no, you have enough time for all you need to do, all that God has for you to do right now. You have
Yep.
plenty of time. And in our belief card poem that we have for kids, it says, I don't have to hurry or worry. Jesus
Oh,
settled the score.
come on now.
And that goes across your life. It goes
Yep.
every scenario. You don't have to hurry or worry.
Yep.
Jesus has it all under control.
I love that so much.
I love that. Okay. Well, again, we could talk about this for a long time, but we got to go. Share with us how people can get in touch with you. I know you have an amazing freebie you want to share with the listeners too. So share away.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much for having me today, Shan. I am actually on another podcast. So, podcast listeners, I know you're already on this. So, pause right now, jump over to Heal with God, and you can subscribe there and listen to hours and hours of more free training. And I have a freebie. If you're interested in hearing God's voice to heal, I have a freebie that's going to help you do that. It's called the Free Mental Makeover Challenge. So it comes with a checklist of 5 things that you can do. And when you do these 5 things, you start learning and building the foundation to hear God's voice in your everyday life. And when you start doing that, you start building the foundation. It's something that you need to do in your everyday life. It's not extra, right? We all have a busy life. And so when we start adding it to our daily disciplines, it will change your life and it'll help you hear God's voice and heal all at the same time. So that's heatherobrien.net/mental makeover challenge. That's heatherobrien.net/mental makeover challenge. And I'd love to share that with you today.
Oh, thank you, Heather. That sounds awesome. I hope our listeners go grab that. And yeah, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. I am so glad that we've met and gotten connected.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well, you listeners, please be sure to go over to Heal with God because we need all the healing. We need all the healing and all the prayers. So go over and hang out with Heather. And thanks for being here. Hey, Wellness Warrior. I pray that blessed you. And if so, it would bless me big if you would write a 5-star review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Not only would this make me super happy, but it will allow for others to find this show too. Also, I love to chat over on Instagram, so make sure to take a screenshot, share to your Instagram stories, and tag me at the Shan so I can see it and we can keep chatting and bring other moms to chat with us. Until we get to chat again, mama friend, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace.